aspects of human resource management in today's module, which comprises of 2 hours. So we will be covering introduction to human resource management and managing global human resource management, strategic human resource management as well. So to start with, let's start with introduction to human resource management. So it's a big question in today's world about what is human resource management. However, we interact daily with human beings on at every level. I mean, be it home, be it office, be it on the roads, and we are dealing with human beings, and it is one a breed which possess the power of emotional strength and intellectual strength. So when it comes to organizations, it becomes really difficult to manage, or it becomes a bit tasking to manage humans, because every human being is different, the perspective is different. So today I'll give you a brief introduction about human resource management. So to go back, why and I mean, with this following example, I'll try and express or explain it to you why human resource management is crucial, and why did this field of study became so important in any management, subject that you talk about. So, I mean, if you go through the slide, I've tried to depict few things. Like, we talk about telecom. So I remember when we were kids, we had landline phones at our place, and when I was maybe in my fourth standard, it was then that my dad applied for a BSNL landline, and we got a mobile. We got a landline then. So if you see the structure of the or the design of the landline phones also differed, with its added features that came into it later on. So we initially had landlines which was kept at one place. Then we went up to a cordless phone, wherein you could take the phone around the house and talk to anybody and do your work as well. And then pagers came into existence. From pagers, we went up to dial phones or mobile phones, where we had keypads. And now we are talking about iPhones. So if you really think, the industry has changed dramatically because of the continuous innovation, the continuous product development that has happened in the past 10 years. And honestly, it's a research data that whatever technology we are using currently has been innovated or developed in the past 4 years. So it's a changing world, and everything is changing around us. So innovation becomes a very important factor, a very crucial factor in current industry, or in the current system. So when we talk about innovation, who does the innovation? Innovation is basically done by humans. When we talk about our grandparents, the major work that they used to do when they used to work was it was laborious work. They used to work with their hands, even if, I mean, bringing one thing from one place and placing it somewhere else, or collaborating two different things. Or even somebody who was an accountant used to use pen and paper, or a big bahi khata was kept at our offices, and people used to write on that. But now things have changed. Now you and I, in the past 15 years, are not doing laborious work. Our major work is focused on thinking. I mean, we are being paid for thinking or coming up with new ideas. Uh, I mean, if you talk about laborious work, yes, people used to go back and used to say that I want these many pieces ready by, in next 2 hours, and it was ready. But today, if somebody comes and tells us that I want a idea within an hour, it is impossible, because uh, ideas cannot be generated within any specific time frame. It is basically a state of mind. uh, it again gives me I mean, I would again like to add on an example from the industry, which is a very famous example, that once Colgate went approx had a very difficult time to increase its sales in the market. So everybody from in the organization was very upset about the fact that the sales is not increasing, and they entered India, and They wanted to increase the sales of their business. So they tried various marketing techniques, they adopted various other strategies to, improvise on the sales figure. However, there was one workman from their floor who went up to the management, and then he came up with a very brilliant idea. He said, and that time they used to use aluminum tubes for filling the toothpaste. And that time he went back and he said that it's very simple. You just increase the usage of the product, and automatically, when the usage increases, the demand increases. So everybody was surprised that how is it possible. So he said, just increase the size of the nozzle from which the product comes out, and with that minutest of increase in the size of the nozzle, there's actually they increase the sales figure. That was a very innovative thought process that came across from a small workman from the workshop. So innovation basically is something that humans can do. No other aspect. I mean, if you talk about machine, if you talk about money, if you talk about uh, anything pertaining to any business structure, your IT infrastructure, that cannot solely think. Thinking is a capability that humans are blessed with. So moving ahead, when we talk about any business, there are four major contributors: men, money, material, and machine. So as I said, out of these four major contributing factors, men is one of the most difficult aspect to be controlled, because every human being is different. The kind of thought process, the kind of belief system, the value system, everything differs. The emotional strength, every human being is unique, it's different. So that's the reason human resource management came into existence, because you cannot treat men as animals or men as machine. Men's are men's. So human beings need to be treated as human beings. So let's try and define human resource management, keeping in keeping into the examples that I've recently shared with you at back of a mind, and try and understand what HRM is. So I've tried to bifurcate this word into human resource management as three different words. So by human, we mean the skilled workforce that is available in any organization. And resources refers to the limited availability of a resource. And because in today's context, when we talk about why human resources, or why humans, or why, any particular candidate is difficult to be identified, because the technology is changing. When we talk about IT, initially I remember people were behind, C, C++, COBOL, but with time the technology changed. Then came the phase of Linux or Java, Oracle. Today people are talking about big data, MongoDB, R, SAS. So things have constantly changed in the past 10 years, and it is very difficult for anybody to keep oneself abreast to the upcoming or the latest technology in the industry. So I mean, that's the reason humans, or you I mean, one find it difficult to identify the right candidate for a position, because even candidates, to identify candidates is very difficult in today's scenario because of the changing environment. Everything changes within a very short span of time. So that's the reason we say that human resources is also a scarce resources, because depending on the necessity or the demand of a particular skill set, you need to search that skill set, and at times you do not find it because you fall short of that skill set in the market. So that's the reason human resources is is also termed to be scarce, or it's the availability is limited. And management, by management we refer to the proper utilization of this whatever availability that we have in the market. So management is the art of getting things done by other people in the organization, is what is defined in our books. And human resource management is exactly managing humans or the workforce in any organization to attain your business objectives. So if you go about by what other authors have said. According to Michael Armstrong, you see, in 2006, he mentioned that human resource management is defined as a strategic and coherent approach to the management of an organization's most valued assets, the people working there who individually and collectively contributes to the achievement of its objectives. So when we actually take this example, we can see that Michael Armstrong gave good emphasis on strategic and coherent approach, because it isn't that there is a standard or a standard way of managing any human resource. You have to have some strategy in place, and your strategies are going to be purely driven by the business objectives that the organization has. So, I mean, to make keep it simple, I mean, you can go through this definition once again later on. However, to keep it simple, let's stick to a very simple definition of human resource management, which is, it's a formal system devised for the management of people within an organization. So when you look at this pyramid is divided into three levels, which is operational HR, tactical HR, and strategic HR. And in major organizations, the HR is is uh, probably confined into operational HRs, because what is an operational HR? Operational HR takes care of time management, leave management, maternity leaves, your paternity leaves, your medical facilities, or your group insurance policies. All these things comes under operational HR. Or, I mean, here disciplinary actions has to be taken, that also goes into operational HRs. So this comprises of a major chunk of your daily HR activity, which was again initially called as personal administration, and which is still prevalent. However, in Indian context, organizations are trying to move their HR from operational HR to tactical or strategic HR, which is of prime importance. And when we talk about tactical HR, the next level of HR was wherein compensation management came into picture, wherein your performance management systems, your competency mapping, assessment centers came into existence, and succession planning came into existence. And a more refined way of doing it went into the next level, which is of strategic HR, wherein succession planning was taken up to the next level, and your learning and development programs came into existence. That these are our core leadership candidates or employees in our organization, and we need to impart them these many trainings so that they can actually move up to the next level. So that is particularly HRM. When we talk about this all these three aspects actually comprises of in any organization. So what is the objective of a human resource management? The prime objective is, any human resource department of any organization should be goal oriented. What do we understand? Goal orientation means that every organization has a specific objective to be achieved. It has a specific goal to be achieved. The vision, the mission statement is your goals and objectives. And even for an HR, goal is derived from the vision and mission of the organization. So when we talk about hitting 500 crores, so how are you going to hit 500 crores in 2 years or 5 years down the line? So there is a strategy that has to be adopted, and human resource is a part of that strategy, wherein how many candidates to be pulled up from the market, what product are we talking about, what skill set is required, how many people are required, what is going to be the budget of hiring these many people. That is basically goal orientation. So second is enhancing and utilizing the skills and abilities of the workforce efficiently. So I mean, when we talk about KPOs and BPO sector, when they came into India, I'll give you this example primarily because uh, when we talk about Infosys, when we talk about TCS, they take up projects from international market, and they have a set or a skill set of people, in bunch of people that are hired and kept in their organization. So many times you might have heard this term called bench. So many candidates are also kept in bench, so that whenever a project is taken from from abroad, so these people are actually ready. This is readily available with us to be and they can start working on that project from day one. So there is no lag time in between. So this is basically a perfect example of how to utilize the abilities of the workforce efficiently. Or when we come to know, when we in such organizations, downsizing is a very prominent phrase that we continuously hear. So to tackle the downsizing effect, what these organizations did was they have many projects that are in pipeline, and they also know that when a project is going to end. So they tactically align the people who are working on a certain project and the project is about to end to a new project. So this is basically, uh, again, second example of how HR departments in various organizations in today's world efficiently utilize their manpower, and in return also take care of their HR branding, also take care of the organizational's goodwill in the market. Because if you continuously pick people from the market and then you downsize and you ask the people to leave, also gives a about the organization in the market. So it becomes difficult to identify new resources. So to manage all sorts of things, HR tries and utilizes their current resources in such a manner. Third is infusing trained and motivated workforce in the organization. So I mean today, when we talk about in this constantly changing world, it is very difficult, or it is near impossible to actually get people on board and let them get trained. I mean, we don't have that much of time to let the person get trained in 6 months time or 7 months time. We maximum can give a person 1 to 3 months time, depending on the criticality or the technicality of a particular job role, to get adjusted to the project. So it is the responsibility of the HR to get the trained and motivated workforce from the management. So you have to constantly infuse the system with trained and motivated workforce. Fourth is employee relations, employee satisfaction, and self actualization. By employee relation, we understand that, I mean, to give you an example again, HR, any HR personnel or any HR executive in any organization has to, we always say that it's a role of a confidant and a confident person. By a confidant, we mean to say that many a times employees come to us and they discuss their issues or their problems with their bosses or with their colleagues or with the team. So at that point of time, an HR has to be a confidant. I mean, a confidant is a person who will not express or who would not go around and talk about an issue that has been shared with that person in the organization. The person keeps the information and shares only that particular piece of information which is to be shared, not the every bit. Because while discussing, and since I've always been harping upon the fact that humans are emotional, while expressing feelings, employees tend to share an emotional, through their emotional touch as well. And at times they might make certain statements which is not apt for to be discussed openly. So as an HR, I need to I need to understand the emotional trauma or the emotional upheaval that the employee is going through, and take the information, deduce it, and use information which is required to be used, not the entire thing. And also a confident person, because as an HR, I'm also supposed to go back and talk to the employee if the employee is wrong and in some way. And this particular tactical way or tactful way of managing employees is called employee relationships. And by employee satisfaction, we mean that any employee needs to be satisfied with the work he's doing, or with the pay package that he's getting, or the incentives that he's getting. Because if he's not satisfied, he would not be able to put his, and if he's not able to put 100%, then he's actually killing those many man hours that you are being paying him for. So here human resource management comes into picture, wherein a human I mean an HR manager or an HR executive needs to understand whether an employee is satisfied or not. And if it is not, then what are the reasons, and addressing those reasons. Going into the next point is the objective of HRM of maintaining work-life balance. Uh, I've actually seen there was a trend in organizations wherein people, just to satisfy their bosses or just to satisfy the line of manager, they used to stay back. And we used to appreciate, I mean, not we, but there are many managers who used to appreciate that. However, that is not the right way of doing it, because it is the amount of time that you spend within the organization doesn't prove your performance. Your performance actually comes into picture with the amount of deliverables that you've delivered on time. So that should be your performance measurement, not staying back late in the office. So an HR comes into picture wherein you need to maintain your work life balance, getting leave policies, getting such leave policies into existence in an organization that actually helps in achieving organization's objectives, as well as maintaining the work life balance of an employee. You cannot ask an employee to come to work for all the 30 days and give him no week offs and just pay him the money, because end of the day the employee is going to get exhausted, and when he gets exhausted he's going to avail his medical leaves if required. So that practice should also be controlled, and is controlled by the human resource department. The second last objective of HRM is communicating the HR policies. When we talk about HR policies, there are various HR policies, administrative HR policies or tactical HR policies, which needs to be communicated to the employees time and again. And that is the role of HR department. The last but not the least is corporate social responsibility. When we talk about corporate social responsibility, this is a word which has come into existence in the past 15 years in a big way. Because when we talk about revenue generation from the market or getting business from the market, it is also the responsibility of organizations to giving it back to the people or the consumers in return. And that is where your social responsibility comes into picture. You might have seen ads of various brands saying that if you buy this particular product of our brand, we spend this much of amount into education of a girl child or upliftment of rural areas. So these are small steps into corporate social responsibility. However, there are many others as well, wherein there are various organizations who take up a particular village and takes care of their basic amenities of electricity, pure water, good water supply, and all that. So that is again a part of human resource department. Coming back to HR policies, what do we understand by HR policies? Uh, See, it is not possible that without any framework, without any system, you drive the human resource department or you drive your employees in the organization. It would be impossible, because then uh, a major we all would be into biases. And that's the reason HR policies became important, because there has to be a set rule or a set way of managing people. So HR human resource policies are formal rules and procedures that dictate how certain matters should be addressed in the workplace, including employee rights and duties. So when you go through this definition, you will understand that here the human bias is being taken out from the system by implementing processes and procedures which will help making a better workplace, and and this would also help in taking care of day to day problems or issues, or any because humans, when we interact, not all of us are compatible with each other. We have friends and we have people with whom we are not comfortable with. So in organizations also we have a mix of people. So there are people who can gel really well and there are people who cannot. So taking care of all sorts of differences in working style, in understanding uh, the HR policies becomes very important. So for me, probably coming 10 minutes late might not be an issue, but for my boss it might be an issue. And to take care of that, a proper time management or timekeeping system is in place, wherein a person has to log in at 9:30 means he has to log in as 9:30, and there is a grace period of 5 minutes. Okay, agreed. There's a grace period, so the manager is also consoled that okay, there is a grace period given by the HR itself, so I cannot do much about it. But yes, if the employee comes regularly late by 10-15 minutes, I can go back to the HR and tell that you have to speak to this particular candidate or particular employee from my team. So that is basically where your HR policies comes into picture, because it helps in minimizing conflicts between various departments or amongst employees or amongst manager and an employee relationship is maintained. So I hope this clarifies HR policy. The next is the importance of HR policy. It addresses specific workplace issues. As I mentioned, your leave policy is important to take care of leave, because if it wasn't there, then it would be abruptly taken by anybody, and that is not the ideal way to take care. To take leaves, because it is quite. Business need is of prime importance, and if there is a business need, we need people to manage that particular aspect. So if there would have been no leave policy, people would have taken leave anytime or whenever they wanted to, or there might be people who would have taken more than assigned leaves, or people who would have been coming into work and on a daily basis and not taking leaves. So to take care of such workplace issues, HR policy becomes of prime importance. It helps in communication and building understanding between managers and their subordinates. I've just given you an example about that. The next is it gives employees access to valuable resources that help foster their professional growth. Because nowadays HR has also started doing getting into learning and development, and developing a particular department called learning and development, wherein employees get trained on various aspects like soft skills, behavioral skills, functional skills. So the HR policies help, because there is a certain number of hours that every employee need to spend in taking up certain HR related or training pertaining to their job role. So this becomes a very valuable resource. And second, there are even organizations who I mean, they sponsor candidates for specific programs, so that they can upskill themselves, the employees can upskill themselves, which would in return help the organization. So such policies help an employee to access resources which he wouldn't have in a normal situation. It also helps in creating a positive work environment. When you have HR policies in place, there is no biasness, there is no scope of deviation, and there is transparency and clarity in the minds of the employee that we are not being fooled. And if there is a policy for me, there is the same policy applies for the other person sitting next to me. So that helps an employee in understanding that the workplace is good and I can work here. So it creates a positive work environment. So there are different types of HR policies. That is, and if you see the circle, this circle talks about the various HR functions. That is, appraising, planning, staffing, developing, motivating, managing change, maintaining relationships, and evaluating. So when we talk about these functions, all the policies are driven by these functions. So there are originated policies which are simply adopted on because of the basic laws and rules of the ground. So if we talk about India, there are labor laws wherein there is a minimum wage law, uh, there is a PF law or gratuity law, which is to be. There is no as an organization we cannot deviate from that. We have to adhere to basic laws of the land. So these are policies which are originated and which are like there is no not doing about it. You have to do, you have to get those policies in place. There are implicit policies, there are imposed policies as well, and appealed policies or general policies or specific policies. I mean, by imposed policy means uh, at certain situation wherein things are going out of hand, you have to get certain policies in picture wherein the employees are asked to follow that rule uh, anyhow. So these are imposed policies. General policies comprises of leave, maternity benefits, your PF, your gratuity. These are general policies. And specific policies like sexual harassment at workplace becomes a specific policy which has gained huge applause in the current industry, and and it has become one of the most important law to be adhered by any organization today. So these are different types of policies. Uh, when we talk about HRM policies and their relationship with other fields, so why HR? I mean, as we said, HR policies are of prime importance. So when we talk about their relationship with other fields, these fields become prime importance. Policies are related to health and safety. When we talk about health and safety in manufacturing units, there is a policy of doing drills, fire drills, and earthquake drills, so that every employee knows that in case of any natural calamity or in case of any mishappening that can happen anytime, and uh, what one needs to follow. So that becomes a policy. So when that is that these policies are driven by us an objective of health and safety. There are organizations who have a policy of conducting health checkups for all the employees in 3 years time or 5 years time. Every fifth year there has to be a health checkup. That is again related to health and safety because prime importance. Welfare, there are organizations who conduct various town halls, or they invite families of certain activities. So this is basically employee welfare. I mean, even employee welfare, your group insurance policy or an accidental policy is also a part of employee welfare. Social security measures or grievance redressal. If you talk about grievance redressal, sexual harassment policy, which is a very strong policy in place in today's world, that comes under grievance redressal. So, uh, the, every policy that an HR adopts has some relationship with all these, aspects mentioned here, or all these fields mentioned here. Trade unions and employee association. When we talk, when we, excuse me, uh, when we talk about trade unions and all. One second, please. I'm extremely sorry for this. Yeah. So going back about trade unions and employee association, I mean, when we talk about manufacturing units, manufacturing industry, trade unions become of very prime importance because in Indian context, trade unions still exist. And when we talk about trade unions, employee welfare and the wage management system really matters. So all the policies we have to adhere to the norms or laws of the land. Industrial relations, again, when we talk about, again going back to the same example, manufacturing units, when we talk about pharma, there are hazardous chemicals that are used, and there is also a lot of trash that is hazardous in nature. So how do you dispose this trash? There is a method to be followed, because that again is a policy, and that every that a manufacturing unit has to adhere to. And then comes international human resource management, wherein since globalization is has taken up so much of pace in this world, international human resource management becomes of prime importance. So when we talk about international human resource management, remuneration, uh, they're coming down from a different part of the nation to and staying at a different location. So taking care of the family, taking care of your basic needs, all these things comes into in HR policy. How are you going to travel, where are you going to stay, and these all things are covered in HR policies. So this is basically the relationship of HR policy with other fields. So with this, we basically cover our first aspect of today's module, which was human resource management, introduction to human resource management. The concept was made clear, HRM policies, and the relationship with the other field was covered. So now we would go and talk about managing global human resource management. So uh, basically, what is a global human resource management? I mean, I'm sorry, I went back to check whether how many participants I have in the class. So, hello everyone. Hi, Rohit, Shalu, Ruchi, and Rahul. I'm glad to see you today here. So, in case you have anything that you wish to, I mean, talk, I'm giving access to all of you so that if you have any queries so far, you can discuss it right now. So, I mean, you can. Um, Guys, you can actually type or uh, or you can let me know if you have any queries so far and you want me to go back and discuss something that is taken care of in the module. Okay, since no one has any queries, so we'll go up to our next aspect, that is managing global human resource management. So under this topic we are going to discuss about global human resource management. What is it all about? How do you implement a global HR system? How is staffing taken care in global organizations, specifically MNCs, and the basic challenges that an HR face in managing the expatriates. So if you see here, I've taken few examples from the industry. That is, if you go through the logos, it is PricewaterhouseCooper, the first one, Royal Bank of Scotland, McDonald's, Google, Zara. So these are basically organizations from various sectors. When we talk about Google, um, Google takes, if just to take an example, is a global organization. It's an MNC. Whenever it hires any employee or from any location, it takes it takes only the creamy layer, and the work culture, the way they manage their employees is very different from how Royal Bank of Scotland manages or how McDonald's manages its employee. So when I mean, this is what is being a global organization, because you innovate and you even take care of the employees in a very different way from the normal organizations. When we talk about McDonald's, again, they have a different set of menu in different nations. When we talk about McDonald's in India, it has a veg menu, whereas when we go to the same McDonald's in UK or US, they do not have a veg menu. Or when you go to Japan, they might probably have a sushi menu, which is unique to the demography where they are existing, based on the market, based on the various factors or personal likes and dislikes of the customers. Global human resource management is also basically taking care of various employees coming from different nations or different countries and working for you, and taking care of their, you know, I mean, giving them a work environment wherein they can adjust into a work environment because they come from a different culture or come from a different background. So, again, going ahead, what is global human resource management? Global human resource management treats the entire world as one large country and carries out activities to use its human resource effectively. So, global human resource management includes activities like HR strategies, staffing, performance evaluation, management development, compensation, labor relationships, etc. So, I mean, when we talk about GHRM, I mean, cut it short, like Global Human Resource Management to GHRM. When we talk about GHRM, labor relations, probably here in India, we have n number of rules pertaining to labor safety or labor wage or labor health and safety. However, when you go to US, they might have a different policy or a different way that they tackle their labor force. So when you get a person from US to work in India, you have to give the same level of comfort so that he feels safe in current working environment. Similarly, when we talk about compensation in India, there is a trend of a 30-day pay cycle or a 28-day pay cycle or 22 days pay cycle, depending on the organization to organization. So, however, when you go to UK, they have a 7-day pay cycle or a 15-day pay cycle wherein you need to pay a particular your employee wage on every 15th day. So this is the difference, and when you get people from different countries, you need to cope with the different culture or the different way that they work there, and taking care of them. Implementing global HR system, adoption of global perspective. Basically, when you wish to implement a global HR system in your organization, you need to understand the global perspective. By adoption of global perspective means any expat coming down from say UK to India, you need to take care of the different policies or framework or the culture that the employee is coming down from, and you have to frame your policies in a way that the employee doesn't feel hesitant or doesn't have any issues in adopting to such situation. um, in the past explanations that I've given, we are harping upon policies to make the employee comfortable, because uh, globalization is the mega term today. It's a mega trend today, and you any organization is not left untouched, because um, I mean, most of the MNCs come from globalized or developed nations, and the policies that they have is far much better than what we have or we adopt here in India. So we need to keep in pace, because most of our revenue are coming from them. Most of our GDP comes from them. 50% of our GDP is basically from MNCs. So when we talk about GDP, or when we talk about our national growth, uh, automatically, as in an organization, if we want more business or we want more revenue, so we and our customer base is you know sitting abroad, we need to adopt to their culture, or we need to adopt to the way that they are comfortable working in. Second point is, when you are defining or developing a global HR system, you need to identify the essential activities, like how are you going to source your employees from, what are the basic standards that you are going to follow while staffing. So these perspective has to be kept in mind. Getting matching talent. Basically, when we talk about UK, US, they have set of standard processes in place. When they talk about a maintenance manager on the workflow, that maintenance manager has to have certain qualifications. So when the organization has set up a manufacturing unit in here in India, we need to take care of same getting the same resources as per the organization's need, or as per the standard processes or standard competencies or skills required by that particular position has been set. Construct a career graph. In India, majorly, we would agree that there are many Lala companies wherein they do not they do not bother about the career development of any employee. However, when we want to make our organization a global organization, we need to take care of the career graph of every employee, because employee becomes a very crucial or a contributing factor in an organization's growth. So, when you look up at any MNC or any global organization, you'll find that they have defined the career graph very crisply, or it is very transparent and very clear. So a career graph is of prime importance to any employee. Like if I join any organization, I need to know how am I going to be assessed or promoted, or how is it that my performance is going to be managed or tracked. So all these things becomes a crucial factor. Identifying leadership talent. When we talk about going global, it is very important to identify those key resources which are going to help us move up to the next level, and train them and assess them and take care of their strengths, and understand where is the skill gap, and giving them the trainings and identifying such people, so that your next 5 years pipeline of good managers is in place. So you can, rather than taking people from outside, you actually empower your own employees and push them to the next level. So the next one is regular recruitment. Being a global organization, you would have that sort of need of upcoming motivated and educated talent with the right skill set from the industry. So you need to continuously have regular recruitments happening. You need to even do internal job postings, because many a times you might have identified in your career that there might be employees who wish to do certain get into certain profession. However, with time they realize that they do not like, their interest doesn't lie in that particular work, and they want to do something else. So internal job postings plays a very important role, because then if there is certain thing that is of interest to me which is available in my organization, I might not look out for a change outside. I'll try to move on into the same organization, into a different role, into a different department, based on my interests. Engaging and retaining talent is again a very important factor for any HR the department who is working in any global organization, because today we cannot afford to lose out, or we cannot attrition becomes a prime a critical factor to be taken care of by any HR. So we cannot afford to lose out candidates quickly, because there is a lot of time and effort that goes behind getting the right talent. And then uh, once the talent is in place, you actually spend time or give that many man hours for the talent to get adjusted to the organization's philosophy. And once he's ready to perform, you cannot afford that that employee decides to move out, because then again you are, if it took 3 months, you are again 3 months back, and you'll again spend for the 3 months, which is a 6 months loss for you. So you cannot go through that sort of phase. So that's the reason engaging and retaining talent becomes of prime importance. How is staffing taken care of in a global organization? There are three ways in which staffing happens, which is ethnocentric, wherein all key management positions are filled by parent company nationals. So basically, uh, if we see, like, if we talk about any banks, like Royal Bank of Scotland, so when we talk about key positions here in India, if they are opening an organize operations in India, the key positions are basically managed by their own nationals from their country. If they come from UK, the major leadership roles here in India would be filled by UK employees or expats, basically. So that is an ethnocentric approach of any organization, that keep filling the key positions of an organization by the parent company nationals. Second is polycentric, wherein the host country nationals manage the subsidiaries. Parent company nationals have key positions at the headquarters. So basically, there is a divide wherein it's a mix of the leadership roles has a mix of people coming from the parent company's location, and the host country location as well. However, the divide is very clearly defined here, wherein the subsidiaries are going to be managed by the host country, whereas the headquarter key positions are going to be managed by the parent company locations. Geocentric location is the third one, wherein seek best people for key jobs regardless of nationality. Wherein it doesn't matter for me if the parent company is from UK. If you get a good CEO from the host country, please get the person on board. So here, regardless of the nationality, the key jobs are filled by the best possible resources from the market. So these are the three basic strategies of staffing which is adopted in a global organization. Next is managing expatriates. So, who are expatriates? An expatriate is an individual living in a country other than their country of citizenship, often temporarily for work reasons. Now, basically, in India, there was a word which we used to, talk about is brain drain. Yes, 15 years back, when there was a boom in IT industry in India, India actually experienced a lot of brain drain happening, wherein our people used to go abroad and settle abroad and work there in their organizations. And basically, this was a big shifting trend. However, in the current scenario, things have changed. Now, even the countries and organizations have realized that they cannot permanently relocate people from one place to other because of various reasons. So what they have done is that now on-site has become a very talked about term in any organization. So today we get expats from different locations, maybe UK, US, London, Australia, Japan, and Germany or Russia. And even Indians go and work in different locations in different organizations and for a very short term. So these people who are actually going from their native country to other country and working are basically called as expats or expatriate. So how do we manage an expatriate becomes very crucial. There are basic challenges when you manage expats. A research study shows how a high rate of expatriate failures ranging from 25 to 50%, mainly due to the culture shock that usually occurs within 4 to 6 months after arrival in the foreign country. Because you would understand that going from your home country and setting ourselves in a different nation or a different country is very difficult, because we come from a different background or a different culture background, and they have a different cultural background, a different belief system, a different value system. So what is a culture shock? Culture shock is basically initially when a person I mean, if we take an example of a young IT engineer or a software engineer, he's all energetic and enthusiastic about going and staying in Amsterdam. However, initial 2 3 months he'll be all excited with all that energy and vigor in him, that yes, I'm in a different country and I'm getting to explore so many new things. However, in another 2 3 months time, like when he crosses 4 months or 6 months, he realizes he starts missing his family, he starts missing his friends, because it's very difficult to make new friends so easily in a different country. And there'll be a culture shock that will come into picture, because probably in, like, for Indians specifically, many of us are vegetarians, and they find it very difficult to find vegetarian stuff abroad. So, or they might even find it, but then it might be a bit of heavy on their pockets. So that becomes small things starts accumulating, and the candidate comes into a situation of culture shock. So this is a major challenge that any global HR department faces, wherein there are many failures, expat failures that happens. So family considerations, like uh, um, if a person is married, he would prefer his spouse to come along, or the kid to come along. Health and safety, there are many countries wherein the health and safety standards are not up to the mark, and when we Indians also go there, we find it difficult to cope up with the environment, to cope up with their health and safety measures, because here it might be far much better than what other countries have. So these are basic challenges. The remuneration, as I gave an example, in UK they have a 15-day or a 7-day paycheck system, and in India we have a monthly paycheck system. So these are the basic cultural differences. When we talk about cultural differences, the recent trend that we talk is about uh, accepting homosexuality and accepting different things. So basically it becomes difficult for an Indian to adapt to these situations, because we have different value system, we have a different belief system that we've been taught from a childhood. So these cultural differences comes into picture. Economic status, um, when we talk about economic status, the economic status of the country becomes of prime importance. Like, when I mean today, even if you are a global organization, you have an operation, you had operations in Syria, but now currently, because of the economic and the current law and order situation of Syria, you cannot expect your employee to stay there and work for you, because there is a turmoil. So all these things accumulate or become a challenge for a global organization having operations into various countries. Today, if you get a tsunami in Chennai, your work gets affected all across, because I mean, or the flood that affected in Chennai hindered many organizations, because many things were I mean, there were servers there, they had production line there, which actually closed down, so for a certain period of time. So that affects the performance of an individual, and that also affects the person staying away from his country, and staying at a location which is hit by such natural calamities. So basically, this was all about global human resource management. So I'll again come back to you, and I would again like to answer a question if somebody has any question pertaining to global human resource management, and would you like me to discuss anything further? If not, then we'll go on to the next uh, topic of today's session, which is strategic human resource development. So, what do you understand by strategic human resource development is what we are going to discuss. So, again, this is my favorite topic, because it is all about business again. So, if you look at this slide, it talks about what is business all about. And in India, when we talk about business, we generally idealize Lakshmi, and Lakshmi with a flowing pot. So business is basically investments, which is assets, operating costs, returns, which is top line, bottom line, growth, salary, incentives, blah blah blah. So this is what business is all about. But when we talk about business, we always talk about Lakshmi. So uh, business is bit beyond than Lakshmi. So how, I mean, in India, there's a trend of applying or putting rangoli in front of the doors on an auspicious occasion, or in certain parts of India, and on every day, on a daily basis, there are females who actually draw rangoli at their house. So what is a rangoli? What is the importance of rangoli? Uh, if you go back to scriptures, you'll understand that Rangoli is basically made to entice Lakshmi to come home. So if you relate this concept to business, Rangoli is basically a method or a strategy to entice Lakshmi to come into your organization. So it becomes a very important term now, because what in business today we do is we always talk about how are we going to get profits, how are we going to get the top line, how are we going to get the bottom line. But we what we miss is why we want to do this, or why do I need to become a market leader. Why? Because when and this is the loop, when we actually try and understand why are we doing a specific thing, we get to know how should we go about it. If I mean, if we talk about only like if somebody says that I want to get 100 crores, so why do you need 100 crores? Because and then the person says that I want 100 big crores because I want to buy a Ferrari, or I want to have a big mansion, and so that becomes one purpose. So when you have the purpose, again, you will be easily diverted towards how. So when we relate it to strategic human resource management, when somebody or when a CEO or a CFO comes and tells me that I need 100 sales force in this particular product market, so uh, my question is why. So when they answer my why, I get to know the purpose. The purpose is to increase the market share. And when you wish to increase the market share, you need to have your sales force from various regions. So automatically my how comes into picture. Okay, today if I need to increase my sales force by say 10%, and the purpose or the objective is to diversify in the market, then I need a diversified employee pool of employees. So then my target is again the next question comes as, uh, why diversified and which all locations? So why diversified? Because I have a competitor who has a market share in tier 2 city or a tier 3 city at this level, and I want to reach up to a next level. So then again, my when since I ask my why, I come to know how. Now since I need to increase my market share in my 2 tier or 3 tier cities, this is going to be my strategy to get the talent pool, and these are my competitors from which I can get my talent pool from. So here purpose becomes of prime importance again. So strategic human resource, if you relate it, you will come to understand it. Again, going back to the picture of Lakshmi, you can always see I've highlighted that there is a pot being shown wherein it is an overflowing pot wherein uh, gold coins are rushing down. So why is it that Lakshmi holds a pot? Have you ever questioned this to yourself? uh, Lakshmi holds a pot because uh, if you go back scientifically, it is said that any the evidence of any civilization is is I mean, if you talk about Mohenjo-daro or Harappa, the evidence of the civilization was accepted only when a pot was found, because pot is something that can be uh, that was thought by a human being. Animals couldn't, because when we talk about animals, if they want to drink water, they'll go to the pond, drink water, and come back. Whereas as in humans, we created pot because we knew that we cannot go to the river or the pond every day and collect water. Humans are blessed with brains by God, and that is the reason humans are of prime importance in any organization. So when we talk about uh, getting Lakshmi into the organization, you need to get talented resources, you need to get humans who have the capability or the creativity to innovate your product or innovate your services. So step one is imagination, and step two is visualization or having a vision, is what is of prime importance in making any business successful. So if you wish to make any business successful, this also implies to your HR department that you need to imagine and visualize that why this particular step is being taken, or what is the business objective of the organization, and align your HR strategies to it. So this is all about strategic human resource management. If you go back to the example that I've given recently in the past, you'll understand this definition pretty well, that strategic HRM is an approach that defines how the organization's goals will be achieved through people by means of HR strategies and integrated HR policies and practices. So again, organization goal is of prime importance. It has been highlighted here that organization goals needs to be achieved by HR strategies in and integrated HR policies and practices. You cannot have HR policies and practices which are not aligned to your business goals, because then you're going to actually divert the attention of your employees to a different objective, whereas your organization objective is different. So according to Henry and Pettigrew in 1986, strategic human resource management includes the use of planning, a coherent approach to design and management of personnel system based on an employment policy and manpower strategy directed by a philosophy. So basically you need to do a lot of planning, and also you need to have an approach or a designed pattern or a process which is wherein you're going to employ manpower, and you're going to have a philosophy or a value system or a vision and mission statement wherein your strategies are going to be aligned by it, so that this manpower that you are hiring also synchronize with the organizational objectives. Managing HRM policies and strategies to some explicit business strategy. Again, if as an organization, I after 2 years I wish to enter or re-enter into a specific market, my HR policies and strategies should be aligned with it. If today I'm into hardware and I want to get into software, I wish to get into application development of certain level, my workforce or my strategy should be aligned with it. Okay, today we are talking about hardware, but tomorrow we also wish to get into softwares. So this is our long term objective of the business. So what sort of workforce would be required to fulfill that need is what I need to plan in advance, and my policy should be aligned in advance, considering people as a strategic human resource management for having a competitive advantage. When if you talk about Google, uh, they develop their products on an everyday basis. Every fourth year, you get something new. Initially, we never heard about Google AdWords 5 years down the line, but now today AdWords becomes of prime importance. Today, YouTube, we never knew that people can upload videos on YouTube and earn as well, but then they are doing that. So this is a strategic human resource move that has been taken, that has took place based on the objectives of the organization. Okay, so I hope this makes it clear about strategic human resource management. And what is the environment? Strategic human resource environment realizes that people can make or break an organization because all decisions made regarding finance, marketing operations, or technology are made by an organization's people. So it accords the highest priority to managing people and tries to integrate all HR programs and policies with the overall corporate strategy. So here, basically, the strategic environment is basically something wherein an HR also participates in. I'm extremely sorry for the background noise. That's my baby. But I'm coming back to the topic again. Strategic human resource environment is basically an environment that is created by the human resource department of any organization to take care of the business need or to take care of the business goals or objectives. So, if tomorrow I need 500 employees, so why I need 500 employees is going to be my first question. How am I going to get those employees is going to be my second question. And I'm going to plan and strategize, right? Strategic human resource environment talks about concepts like manpower planning. So, I remember when I was working in a transport organization, manpower planning played a very crucial role because, again, transportation is all about, m- you know, how you manage your time. Time is of prime importance because the vehicle is on the transit. How many people are going to be used to manage that, product which is in the transit and the transportation uh, vehicle that is in the transit. So there we used to actually whenever we used to open a new branch in any location, that we used to become of prime importance because that whenever we open a new branch, it's going to hit our margins. So manpower planning becomes crucial. So this is again a part of strategic human resource environment. Return on investment. If you are actually having an HR budget of say X crores, so what is the return on investment? How much revenue do you expect that this infused when you infuse new manpower or new team into picture, what is it that you're going to gain? What is the organization going to gain in return? Budgeting, HR forecasting, this all comes into strategic HRM. HR cost, learning and development cost, attrition analysis, these are few you know reports that an HR department runs in order to get the clear picture of how I mean w- at what state is the human resource department in. And it is human resource the department is not a revenue generating department, right? It is always considered a cost centric department. However, we can contribute in revenue generation by adopting to policies or strategies wherein there is going to be minimum loss of man hours or maximum utilization of resources, so that in a certain amount of cost you are able to achieve whatever you want to. So it is not directly related to generation of revenue, but yes, we can always strategize or plan our policies accordingly so that our revenues or are not hit, and we do not always become a cost centric department. Organization HR and as distinctive competitive advantage. uh, in today's changing world, being competitive in the market is of very I mean, so it's very crucial, it's of prime importance, because um, if you talk about iPhones today, okay, they have created a niche, they have created that market, for themselves, that where people find pride in using that particular product. However, it might miss on certain aspects which a Samsung phone might have, which an iPhone might not have. But they have a competitive advantage because they have a different platform, they are very innovative, they come up with new things which not everybody has ever thought of. Similarly, Samsung has created a competitive advantage by innovating screens. I mean, they are market leaders in the screen, mobile phone screens. Every other mobile phone organization or company that you talk about uses a screen that is provided by Samsung, so or manufactured by Samsung. So even if their mobile market goes down, they are still a market leader. They have created a competitive advantage for themselves. So in this, I mean, coming back to the topic again, competitive advantage refers to the ability of an organization to formulate strategies to exploit rewarding opportunities, thereby maximizing its returns on investment. So such strategies, when an organization adopts such strategies like Apple or Samsung, the HR department plays a very crucial role to infuse that sort of talent into the organization, provide that sort of a training, facility to the current employees so that they can come up with innovative ideas. The second principle of competitive advantage derives from offering a product or services that your competitor cannot easily imitate or copy. So here again, if you realize that when you talk about strategic HRM, and we are talking about uh, you know getting into a particular area or market wherein no your competitor cannot imitate you, is of prime importance. Then you hire such talent from the market, and you even make sure that your policies with respect to data security and intellectual property is in place, so that your product or your blueprint of the product or service that you wish to create an edge on is not leaked out of the organization. So this is basically all about our today's module on strategic human resource management and introduction to human resource management and global human resource management. uh, Further, if you have any queries or any concerns with respect to the current module, you can please put across your views or your comments on the messaging panel here, so that I can reply back to you. Or if you wish, you can even drop in a private message to me. So um, I hope um, I hope I'm audible, and I this actually ends the session here. So since the module has been covered, so in the next 5 minutes, if you have any queries, please shout. Okay, then it was nice interacting with you people. However, we couldn't interact much because being on a virtual platform, this becomes really difficult. So I hope to meet you soon. And in case you have any query, you we can. I mean, always. Oh, thank you, Rohit. Thanks for mentioning. It was a nice session. Thank you so much, and keep in touch. And probably meet you soon in the next session for of HRM. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day and have a happy new year too.